Do you foresee any of this new development coming in your day?
Did what?
Did you foresee any of the new developments coming?
You mean like the computer?
Well, yeah, I guess. Yeah.
Or you mean Go Motion or those type of things?
Yeah, the whole range of
Well, that's rather difficult to foresee it. They develop on their own, more or less. I suppose one never really anticipated the computer would put you out of business, but it seems to be on the way of doing so. They seem to generate these things artificially now, where all you need is one big thumb to push a button. But they still need animators who are creative to, like John Lasseter, to give the characters character. That's still a big important thing, I think. People who have an imagination other than a technician who simply pushes buttons. But we did everything the best way we knew how at that time. The basis of stop motion animation is still the same, one frame at a time. You have to put something in front of the camera to photograph. There have been all these tools like so-called Go Motion where they try to blur the arms and legs, but you're limited. All you're doing is limiting yourself because you have to block out the rods in some way, and then most of Dragon Slayer was all in the dark. There was some very good material in it, but the picture itself wasn't very commercial. But they're all tools, and still the basis goes back to 1915.
Beast from 20,000 Fathoms, there was a Ray Bradbury story, a short story. Did he work on augmenting that for the screen?
Well, actually, that came about in a rather strange way because the Beast had already had a script. It was called Monster from Beneath the Sea. But it didn't, there were a lot of holes in it when I came on the project. And one day when we were talking about how to refine the story, our producer came in with a Saturday Evening Post illustration and plopped it down on the desk and said, "Eureka, we've got a title for the picture, The Beast from 20,000 Fathoms." Because Ray's story was a short story, and it only took place around the lighthouse, so that we incorporated that as one sequence in the picture. The basic screenplay was already developed, but we incorporated that, and that particular thing along with the title. That was that was the only time we ever got to work together, unfortunately. We had always planned to, but nothing seemed, either he was busy or traveling, or I was in the opposite ends of the earth. But that was the only time we really worked together. But he didn't have anything to do with the screenplay. He just sold the story to me. Yes?
Did you ever change the stories as you were working on them? Did you ever get to...
Change them?
Yeah, did you ever come up with some ideas and...
Oh yes, many times. Many times I bring the story to the project. Like 20 Million Miles to Earth, I wrote a 20-page outline, and then someone else developed it into a bigger 50-page outline, and then we sold it to the company, and they got a screenwriter to develop it into a proper screenplay.
As you're working...
But Golden Voyage was my idea, and 20 Million Miles, actually, after we made The Beast, I wanted to go to Europe, because I had never been to Europe. I wanted to go to France, so I wrote this 20-page outline and made a lot of illustrations called The Elementals, where these great big bat creatures from another planet nest in the Eiffel Tower. So I would get a chance to see Paris. So I sold the story to Jack Dietz, who produced The Beast. But unfortunately, we had 2 screenplays on it, but they never quite were able to get the backing, in spite of the fact that The Beast from 20,000 Fathoms was financially a big success. So that didn't stop me. I did another story in Rome called 20 million, it finally became 20 million miles to Earth. It was called The Giant Emir at the time. And so I wanted to see the Colosseum and all the ruins of Rome. I'd always yearned for that. So I finally got, Charles Schneer's company bought it, and we developed it into a screenplay with a professional writer, and I went over to Rome and found all the locations for it. So a lot of, it's our type of films were always constructed in a rather unorthodox way. Many people think the directors are all the cause. Ours are not what you'd call a director's film. And many of the directors, of course, resent that. Their job mainly is to take care of the live action, see they get the best out of it. But the pictures have to be outlined, because otherwise we could never make them for a price. Today you hear pictures going over 2 or 3 times over what they were budgeted. And we were not in that position at the time. We had to account for every dollar on the screen, so the only way we could do it was to lay it out very carefully and compromise many times to try to get the biggest effect for the least money. As I said, the Seventh Voyage only cost $600,000. You couldn't make that type of picture today for 10 times that. And so we had to have everything laid out very carefully, and that would usually start by my making 6 or 7 big drawings, which I'll show on Saturday night. I have brought some pre-production sketches. And then the screenplay was developed usually out of the visual image, because that's what we were selling, visual impressions rather than a dialogue type of picture. So most of them developed from pre-production drawings into a script. When Columbia owned Mysterious Island, and they wanted us to take it over because they had a lot of money tied up in a script that was never used. So I had to make drawings to try to fit in with the Jules Verne story, and that's how we arrived. Basically, Mysterious Island is just a story of how to survive on a desert island, which wouldn't pacify anybody at that time. It would be rather dull. So we had to inject many other elements, like the giant crab, giantism. At one time, it was going to be a prehistoric island. That's why some elements are still left over in the picture of the prehistoric Volcaroccus and the Nautilus. But then it developed into Captain Nemo wanting to develop his wheat 40 feet high so that it would feed the world, which became a noble exercise. And that was injected into basically a Jules Verne story. H.G. Wells' First Men on the Moon, we had to modify it to make it palatable for an audience today, because many times those stories are dated, and it wouldn't hold up as a feature film to hold your interest for an hour and a half. So we injected these other elements, like Nigel Neal, who was a great H.G. Wells expert. He came in with the idea. We wanted to keep the whole story in H.G.